And we are live. Thank you for joining me tonight. My special guest, very special guest tonight, is Jecelyn Latimer, who's an Essex writer doing NaNoWriMo. And welcome, Jecelyn.
Hi, Gerald. Thank you for having me. It's very nice to come on your show.
Oh, it sounds very posh, doesn't it, on my show?
We need to big these things up. It is a show. We need to have a certain class about us.
Jonathan Ross, I ain't, but certainly not Alan Carr. But anyway, how long have you been writing?
A very long time. I've been writing. Oh, I've enjoyed the whole idea of writing since I was in primary school. Obviously, when you're in primary school, you just think you're really cool making up stories. You don't actually think you could do anything with your stories. And it wasn't until I was about 16 that I started writing a novel for the fun of it. And I thought, why am I not doing more with this? Let's do something with this. So went to university and did an English degree, and my job is now all about writing. So it's kind of working out okay for me.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And what sort of writing do you do in your job?
I'm a journalist and I work on a crafts magazine. So it's a lot of articles, a lot of subbing. It's quite nice. It's quite varied. I get to do a little bit of writing and photography and designing. So it's a really kind of all hands on deck profession.
Fantastic. That's yeah. I always thought that if I could never make it doing what I was doing, I'd have liked to have been a journalist of some sort, because you can write and you get paid for writing, which is is just the ultimate, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
you can buy food with writing, which sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's living the dream.
Okay. So, how many is this your first Nano, or have you done it before?
This is my first proper Nano. I signed up to it a couple of years ago, thinking that I could somehow do NaNoWriMo whilst attending university, and that idea quickly fell through. So this is the first time I'm going for it.
Big time.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And what sort of genre do you write in?
I'm quite varied. I have a lot of subgenres, but my main genre is kind of literary. I just realised actually I'm not a very happy writer. I write a lot of angst and obsessions really, and I kind of look at it and think, oh, I'm quite miserable.
Tell me about it. Yeah. It's funny because sort of misery and death and unpleasant subjects are actually some of the best subjects to write about. You get the the strongest reactions from your characters to these sort of subjects, and so yeah, I like writing about that, and I think I said on a previous program that people who know me and then read my writing said, where does that come from? All that horrible stuff, and but it's all in the head, and it's nothing wrong in that.
No, not at all. I think it's kind of like an outlet of, if I could be really pretentious in saying human nature, I think that we need to write about dark things, and to this day I don't think I can give you an answer. I just feel like you need to write it.
Have you ever tried writing other stuff, other genres?
Yeah, I started out writing horror. I read Stephen King probably before I should have been reading Stephen King. Someone gave me Pet Sematary when I was 10, and
really?
Yeah, it was a big mistake. I've always been quite a keen reader, and before then it was things like The Secret Garden and The Hobbit. Then they gave me Stephen King, and it terrified me, but also excited me in a way that I just, to this day, I can't seem to replicate with any other kind of book. And so I started writing horror at first, and then I started writing fantasy, and then I got to university, and the bigwigs at university said to me, you can't be writing horror, you can't be writing this, and so it kind of took me out of my comfort zone, which I think I needed. I think that when you're writing, you need to kind of take a step away from what you're comfortable from in order to develop, and I still write literary, and I think of it as my genre now, but I do have quite a soft spot for horror. still.
Very good. I spent when I first started writing, I was in sort of online writing groups, and we were working on literary short stories, and I just there was a disconnect there. I just kept missing the mark, and I thought I was writing really great literary fiction, and people would critique it and say, it's too simple. You know, where's the layers? Where's the sub layers? Where's the theme? Where's the subtext? All this sort of stuff. And I think I'm probably at heart a quite simple writer, and you know, which is why oops, I nearly said something bad there. I like to write stories with a sort of fairly straightforward, interesting, but just a sort of on the surface plot. I can't go too deep with these things because I just miss the mark, and people don't understand what I'm talking about. So
well, yeah, I think that's probably one of the best ways to go at writing, especially, well, since I found if you're starting off with writing, is I think one of the flaws that I had when I first started is that I tried to put too much into my novels, and I didn't simplify it enough, and not only I couldn't relate to it, and then I realised no one else is going to relate to this. I think that kind of skimming it down is the best way to go in the beginning anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, I've read literary novels, and they're good, but I prefer a sort of, I don't know, like a rip-roaring tale. I prefer to just read and read and read and really get into the story and finish the book. I don't really enjoy reading novels that require me to stop and think and work out what's really going on.
I think with the whole point of reading is that you don't want to. There was a really good quote I read the other day. You don't want to work too hard to suspend disbelief.
Yeah. No, that's good, and that sort of brings into play author intrusion as well, doesn't it? And people sometimes, beginner writers, don't understand that their text, their manuscript, has to be flawless grammatically. Because it's no use saying, it's one or two mistakes and people still enjoy the story. It brings you out. As soon as you sort of read something and you find the same word repeated in the same sentence, you think it's and that sort of that immersion in the story is gone. So on to NaNoWriMo. And how many words have you done first?
I've done 10,000. I've fallen a little bit behind, but I'm not too worried about this. I think that in the beginning, I was getting quite hung up that I wasn't reaching the word count. But my style of writing is that I can't sit down and write a set amount of words each day. There are going to be some days where I write nothing at all, and at the weekend, I will just have some mad fit and easily write 10,000 words in a day. Well, I said that. I tried to do that last weekend, and I fell asleep at my desk, which probably doesn't help things, but I did get a lot of words down. So,
Yeah, it's. I was just going to. Because I thought, I'm asking you how many words I've done, and I should ask myself how many words I've done.
How many words have you got so far?
I don't know. Hang on a second. Oh, quick, that's it. I'm actually. This is good TV, isn't it? This is wonderful. People are hanging on our.
Okay, it's like a cliff. It's like building up. It's good. It's good drama.
Is it? Right. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, blimey. And we have done 15,138. So I'm a bit less than a day behind, but I've had 3 2,000-word days on the trot, so I'm sort of starting to catch up and starting to get into the story as well, which is good. I think I've noticed that's what happens with Nano, is that you can, when you're writing quickly, that you can sort of immerse yourself in the story as a reader would. I think that's what I found. And you said in the Facebook group today that you've written the end before you've got there.
Yes, I'm quite terrible when I'm planning my books. I've got about 20 stories rolling around in my head all the time, and with each of these stories, I have never been able to figure out the ending. I don't know why. Perhaps I'm fundamentally flawed. I don't know. So this time, I said to myself, try writing the ending first. And I'm talking about a terrible ending. This is an ending that I'm definitely not going to use in my book. It's an ending that I have just very vague thoughts about. It's not so much about context rather than what I'm feeling towards my actual ending. So I've written it. I call it the vomit draft, and it's accepting that my first that my first go is going to be completely rubbish. So I think it's been an experience.
Yeah, and it takes some getting used to it, and I see I sometimes get quite sad because I see people doing nano who approach it with such enthusiasm, such excitement, and people have asked me, "Are you excited for nano?" I said, "Oh, I'm not really excited. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't get excited. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, and those people tend to be the ones that don't get to the 50,000 word finish line, and some people beat themselves up about that, and because they've worked themselves up into this thing where I've got to get to the 50,000 words, and all the stuff coming out of Nano HQ is about getting there and doing words and pushing through and stuff like that, and sometimes you can't do it. And I think the Essex group is very good this year for saying to people, it doesn't really matter. If you can't do it, you can't do it.
Exactly.
And
That's
I'm
one of the
sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry, you carry.
No, I'm writing a blog post about that at the moment, just about the trying to tread that fine line between sort of positive encouragement, because I'm somebody who needs that positive encouragement. I react quite well to stress, well, up to a point, and I need that sort of that deadline to actually get my bum down and do some work. And but some people don't, and it's not always obvious without knowing the people how hard you can push them and how much you can say, yeah, go on, you can do it, rah rah. But having said that, there's so yeah, so you've written. Do you think writing the end first, or writing the end before you get to the end, do you think that will help you write through the middle bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think so far it's proven to myself that actually it has been helping me to write the middle bits. I'm a big fan of the 5-act structure. I recently read a book called Into the Woods. It was by, I forget his name now, it's quite bad, isn't it? He used to be a BBC producer, director and writer, and that kind of gave me the idea at first to actually write the ending, because it's a way of blocking everything into place. Now, I'm one of those people where I do think that each writer has their own kind of psychological makeup. If I won £1 million and you won £1 million, we'd both spend it quite differently. So by me writing my ending, it's not necessarily going to work for someone else, but I'm a firm believer in giving things a go. And with content, what you're saying about the middle, sorry, I just deviated from that for a second. It's helped me really ground my thoughts and ground my scenes in a way that just writing the beginning wasn't doing for me. I'm one of these people where I'm a bit of a perfectionist on first go, and that's one of my fundamental flaws. And I have to get my first line down in my first chapter, otherwise the whole book is not worth it, which I tell myself off for all the time. So by completely breaking the rules, I think that's the great thing that I've learned about NaNoWriMo so far, and the thing that I'm most grateful for is that it's because I've broken these rules, it's kind of bringing out another side to my writing dynamic.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've done that once, I think, right in the end, and that was another challenge. 100, I do all these stupid things. 100K in 100 days, which was designed to really get a sort of a pre-edit novel-length piece out of the writing with less stress than NaNoWriMo. So it's only 1,000 words, only 1,000 words a day. Hey, that's not much. And I was sort of, I found that I was writing stuff and people were moving from one side of the room to another and then saying different things and then moving back to the other side, and you think, this isn't getting anywhere. And then I just suddenly read something about writing out of sequence. So I wrote the end scene, and it really, like you said, it sort of changes your focus. And I then started sort of thinking backwards about how do I get to the scenes before that. And then it all sort of started, the log jam was opened up really, and I was able to write a lot more fluidly because I knew where I was going, which is why for me I'm a firm believer in planning, and I've done 3-act structure plans, and this year I'm doing an 8-sequence structure plan. Same sort of thing that blocks it out, and you know what's happening in a certain section and what the intention of that section is, and then you move on to the next section. And I find it helps to sort of, it's like the drums in a piece of music in a pop song that sort of, it just drives you on. It gives you the beat to carry on.
Yeah.
It's a very strange analogy, but
I like it. It's a good analogy. I completely agree with you there about structuring. I've got quite a love-hate relationship with regards to structure. Sometimes I do let my kind of spontaneous editor come out, and she's a bit mad, but she's great. She gets the job done. My planning editor, this was where I was kind of struggling with at first, because I've used so many methods. I think anyone who's interested in their craft goes and researches ways to come about approaching their craft, and I've done things like the snowflake method, and I've read tons of books about it, like Stephen King, on writing, I think, is the holy grail of writing books.
I don't think I've ever met any writer who hasn't read that book. It's
No, I'm exactly the same. I think I've recommended it to writers who've never read it, and I can't believe it. You never read Stephen King's on writing, and they come back to me like, oh my god, this book is amazing. But I do think you can get a bit dangerous reading all these books and going through all these methods, and I think that it's good to try and experiment, but I think you can get the waiting for Godot effect, is that you are expecting a phrase or a paragraph to come along and hit you and think, I've been looking for that for years. And sometimes it happens, like it happened to me recently, like the book I just mentioned earlier, Into the Woods. I read that and everything kind of clicked into place, and I was like, oh my god, this has changed the way I write. But most people getting down, not hitting their word counts, I think it can make you feel quite down if you haven't found a method that's really working for you. And I think something I just want to talk about as well, maybe briefly, is maintaining good mental health whilst doing this challenge.
Good, yeah. You want to talk about it? Talk about it.
Yeah, just briefly, I think that in terms of structuring, I think for me personally, I'm looking at NaNoWriMo, and I've found that you're not really socialising as much. The support on the forum and on Facebook is fundamental. It's such a good forum, like you said. The Essex group, stars, they really are amazing. But it can be terribly lonely. You're not seeing people. You are isolating yourself in your room, trying to get these words down. And when you can't get that down, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't magic them. And I think it can be quite difficult. And when you haven't got a structure or found a structure that works for you, I think that can only intensify with this. I wouldn't say problem, but with how you're feeling. And so I definitely think for NaNoWriMo, I need a structure in order to stay sane.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, and I think anything you can do to relieve the pressure, especially if you're not used to NaNoWriMo and you're not used to writing, I know a lot of people have been at university, so they say, I've written 2,000-word essays and blah blah blah. I can do this, but to write 1,600 odd words every day for a month is actually quite a different discipline, and to do that with a piece of creative writing, with a piece of fiction, is also quite difficult. And I always think that these people who say, oh, I could write a book if only I had the time, and you think it's damned hard to write a book, and only when you've tried do you realise how hard it is.
I completely agree. I kind of naively came into NaNoWriMo thinking, oh yeah, I'm a journalist. I write, I write every day. I find writing quite easy when I'm at work, but it's a whole different dynamic. The writing that I do, which is factual, which is, I'm not going to lie, a little bit cheesy sometimes because it is, like a fun craft mag. And then you get to this kind of writing, and like you said, you don't necessarily write every day, and you kind of fall out of sync with it, and it is very difficult to get into. I think that writers, there's this whole thing where if I say I'm a writer, I've got to live up to that, and I've got to find the work easy, and I don't. I'm being completely honest in that, saying that writing a book for me is terribly hard, and I've got methods now which I can go to. Like, for example, one of my strategies, if I'm having a bit of a slump, I'm feeling down, is that I'll read some poetry. And the reason why I would read poetry rather than, say, like a novel is, for NaNoWriMo, I'm not looking for structure. I'm not looking to, mimic Hemingway or something. I'm looking for inspirations. I'm looking for words, key phrases, emotions. And I think poetry, for me anyway, really kind of hits, it does something for me.
Yeah, and it also sort of kicks you out of the situation which is maybe causing a problem with creating new words. And I'll put was it last year or the year before, I created this list of 10 plus 2 tips on how to do NaNoWriMo, and one of them that isn't on there is, I don't think it is take yourself out of your normal writing space and go somewhere different, and just relax. And I can see that reading poetry would do that. It still keeps your mind ticking over, but you're not sort of focusing on NaNoWriMo, and you're letting your mind sort of recover a little bit and let it relax, because I think it can get too wound up and too intense.
I completely agree. I think that it's not just actually writing for NaNoWriMo, it's also the constant, this weight in the back of your head that says, okay, I've got to be writing for NaNoWriMo. I go home in an hour, I can just do NaNoWriMo. It does kind of, you've got to be careful not to let it take over your life. And I do think that stepping back and giving yourself even 10 minutes just to do something that, even if you feel guilty and you don't want to watch TV, or just read something short, or do what I do and just go look at cat videos and promise yourself you're going to be 10 minutes and actually spend an hour just watching cat videos.
That's something. I think that one of the dangers with getting stuck on NaNoWriMo is, and I've had this, is once you stop or once you slow down and have difficulty, if you say I'll have a day off, and then the next day you're busy at work and you're going for a drink afterwards, and I'll write tomorrow, and then I'll write tomorrow, I think it's then very easy to look at how far you are quotes behind, and so I'm overwhelmed by this. I can't write 7,000 words to catch up and then keep on writing the same the 1,600 odd words every day. So I think it's important to write every day. And even I mentioned this the other day, there's a challenge that happens, I think, from January the 1st, which is the River of Small Stones, where, yeah, I'll just write this down. Things that I need to link to. I keep forgetting I have to watch the video again. Yeah, it's. I mean, the people behind it are a bit sort of new age-ish. But the idea behind it is that you each day you write a small thing. You on your travels, you see something, and you write a sentence or a couple of sentences about what you see, and it's almost like poetry. It's, you know, I don't write poetry, but I like being able to just have a few words to describe something. And that's it. You know, I'm not weaving a story around it or thinking of characters or plot. It's just something I see, and the sounds and the smells and all that sort of stuff. And it's so if you get stuck, you can just do that for a few days. Just keep the writing going. Keep writing something. It's totally different, but it takes you out of yourself. And then you look back at that. And I look back at a few of the things I've done for the River of Small Stones and think, actually, that's quite poetic. That's quite nice. But I think I think stopping, hoping to restart, isn't going to work for NaNo.
No, I mean, people aren't engines, like you said. You just can't stop and start yourself. And I think what you're saying earlier, actually, people getting quite hung up on the fact that they're not hitting their workouts, they're getting quite down about it. I think that it's not a competition. It's not. I mean, even if you do 10,000 words, that's 10,000 words more than you had a week ago, and it's amazing. I do think that writing a little bit every day and kind of building yourself up to that and not seeing yourself as a failure is the healthiest way of looking at this NaNoWriMo, really. Yeah. I mean, if I get 10,000, if I stay at 10,000 words, if I get to 20,000, don't do any more, so be it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think this is the first year that I've been doing it, and since this is my 11th year of doing NaNo. And I think this is the first time I've actually noticed people talking about reducing the stress. And every year before, it's been sort of rah, get the words done. No, just plough through, just, you know, keep going. And for the first time this year, people are saying, you know, if it's difficult, don't do it, or do a little bit, or change something. You know, don't be afraid to relax, and if it's not possible to do it, doesn't matter. It's achieving your own personal targets, which I think is important. And I put something on the Facebook page the other day that what was it, a specific one? I don't know, but it's something about where you are now. Find out your average word count for those days and try and keep going at that one. So if you're writing 500 words a day, keep going at 500 words a day, rather than struggling to catch up and keep going when it's just not going to happen for you.
Well, even writing 500 words a day compared to the 1,700 that we're supposed to do for NaNoWriMo, 500 words a day, if you do it 5 days a week over a year, you would get an 80,000 word novel done in a year, and that's an amazing achievement. And I think this whole idea that you can get a novel done in a month is fantastic, and that's what enticed me to it. But at the same time, if you are struggling and it's affecting your life, don't do it.
Yeah. It's there are sort of people have real lives away from the internet and away from writing, and sometimes
they do.
I haven't got. So I've read on the internet, so it must be true, isn't it? But apparently people say they go to work and stuff. Who knows? And
sounds horrible.
Yeah, I know. I did that for a while. You have to recognise that's these things are going to happen, and your own health and your family and your children and people close to you, friends, they are more important than some silly challenge. Silly challenge. I'm going to get kicked out. And one other thing I read somewhere. I just read so much, and I can never remember where I come across this stuff. But someone said that they'd written a load of rubbish and they were going to delete it, and I just went, "What? You're going to delete stuff?" And
no, you can't delete stuff.
No, and you mentioned vomit draft before, and I call these draft zeros. They're not even the first draft. They're
I like that. I might nick that from you. Yes. Zero drafts. I like that.
Yeah, it's copyright, but don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm sure I nicked it from somewhere else.
That's what,
It's because that's what it is. It's it might be might be a good writer, and you might be able to get a workable first draft, but having completed 9 nanos, none of those were worth editing. It's I told the story, but by the time I got to the end, there were plot holes. The characters were horrible, horrible as in I didn't think they were strong enough. And what I've done subsequently is with a couple of those, I've rewritten them, and then they become a much stronger story. So my manuscript is full of stuff that I know is. In fact, today there was a section because I wrote a section which I then realised was wrong because it referred to a character that wasn't actually able to do what I said they were going to do. So what I've just done above and below that section is delete this stuff later.
Because well, that's good. It's important. You just don't want to delete stuff when you're writing so fast. Yeah.
And deleting stuff is sort of quite a destructive thing to do as well. It's there's no going back from it. What you've written is worthless, and you throw it away. And actually, it's not worthless. And it's much better to keep it in and then look at it again and say, how can I make this better, rather than just say it's rubbish, take it out. So I think that's yeah. So
when you are editing, so when you have written your NaNoWriMo draft and you are then preparing to edit the first draft, how do you go about that? Do you print off the zero draft, or do you just look at it from your screen, or do you just work from the general idea in your head?
As I said, I've not actually edited. I've rewritten nano drafts so far. The thing I wrote in the summer with a collaborator, I wrote and this was a proper first draft. I thought about printing it off, but then I'm too tight. I'm too stingy. So I just edited it on screen. Saved it as a new version. Went through it because I tend to write in scenes using Scrivener. So I don't worry about chapters, and my scenes can be anything from 250 words to 1,000 or so words. So each block is quite tight and easy to read and edit. And once I've done that, I tick it off and then move on to the next one. So I edit on screen. I think when we get to the so that's first, second. So when I come to edit the second draft, when it's sent back to me, I'll print that off because it's different on paper.
Yeah.
I think especially when you're editing, I haven't bought a a tree book in probably 2 years. So I'm not one of these who gets hung up on the smell and the taste of the book or something. Well, I do like bookshelves. I do love a bookshelf, but
you're tasting your book.
Oops. Maybe just occasionally, but no, I'm a great. Content is more important than the media, so I only ever buy and read ebooks now, and but that's for reading, and that's not analysing. And I think to edit, I think you for me anyway, it works better. First draft 0, early drafts are quite easy because there's horrible things and there's ugly sentences and stuff like that leap out at you, and they're easy to fix. But I think after that, it needs to go on paper, and you sit there in a chair, a comfortable chair somewhere, away from your computer with a pen, and just do it like that.
I do find editing on paper a lot easier than editing on screen. I have to do both, not only in my job, and I admit full, I'm not very good at self-editing my own work, and I get very annoyed at myself for that. But I do like editing other people's work, and I recently looked over my friend's work. She's written a first draft of a novel. It's a very lovely novel. I cannot wait for it to eventually get published. But I read over her first draft, and it was just very insightful the way to see how other people, how the people work in I don't know how you say it. Work in progress. That's the one. I know I get there eventually.
Yes.
I'm just not there. I'm just not there tonight.
I find that's another side effect of Nano is that I tend to have a bit less sleep, which means my grasp of vocabulary plummets, and I even when I'm writing, you know, the manuscript's full of bits that says a better word here, because I know there's a better word, but rather than sort of stare at the ceiling for half an hour trying to find it, I just sort of, you know, it'll come to me when
I'm definitely going to steal that too. I've had one too many existential crises looking at the page and thinking, I need to find a word. Who am I? Just going to steal that.
No, that's another tip from my 10 plus 2 tips. Plough through, it says, and just don't get too hung up on things. Don't get too hung up on mistakes or wrong words or you know, I saw somebody on a different Nano forum was saying, I need the name for a character that means something, I can't remember what it was. And I just thought, just call them Gertrude.
Get any name down.
Yeah, or Jan or something nice and small, so you can type it quickly.
The main character for my story at the moment is called Dominic, or Dom for short, and I've been writing this story for the past couple of years, and I recently, well, I say recently, it was a year ago, I moved into a house with some friends a couple of years ago. No, a year ago. Oh my God! I moved in a year ago, and one of the sons is called Dominic, and I've been saying to myself, I can't call this character Dominic, but in my head, he's Dominic, and I said, sorry, just for NaNoWriMo purposes, the guy is still being called Dominic. I don't care that you're a horrible character. That's fine by me. Yeah. But one tip, I read a quote, and it's really helped actually with NaNoWriMo, how, again, just kind of with my thought process. It's from Henry Miller, and it was, when you can't create, you can work. And it's really kind of hit home, because before I was kind of seeing NaNoWriMo as a kind of prelude to some sort of like Booker Prize winner, and it's not the case. It literally is just work, and work, you know, how do you define work? You can work in a coal mine, you can come out, you can be really grotty, and that's how I'm seeing this book at the moment. It's not even a book, it is just, like I said earlier, vomit draft.
Yeah, it's a story that you want to tell, and that sort of falls down on the side of the sort of positive encouragement. There's lots of quotes from famous authors about, you know, the non-existence of writer's block, and train drivers can't get train drivers block, and things like that. It's not quite the same. It's sort of creative, but I'm. Yeah, there's another quote, isn't there? There's no substitute for bum on seat or something. So and that's what I suffer from, is this, you know, definitely a sort of feeling that, you know, I can't write, you know, I'm no good as a writer, I can't make this story work, blah blah blah. And actually the Nano and other challenges that I do are good for me, because they make me sit down and write, and that's that positive encouragement that I need to do. You know, treat it like a job that you have to do every day, and you might not like it one day, and things may go badly, but you still have to do them.
Exactly. I think that NaNoWriMo, although we've said before you need to watch out, you need to have good mental health, it is also an absolutely fantastic way of kind of getting into the flow again, you know, and learning that writing isn't some sort of grand, you know, like magical thing sitting on a pedestal. It is work, and you need to work for it.
Yeah, And I think some people, especially in the lead up to Nano, talk about word processors. What do you use, and what's the best, and even what make of laptops best. And I remember seeing one of these Grand Designs programs on telly, where they were building a house in France, I think, and one of the rooms was going to be the room where he would write his great novel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I
I wish
thought,
I had, excess money to build myself a writing room. That would be fantastic. But no guarantee of actually writing anything with substance in
no,
this grand writing room.
no. And my most prolific period of writing was when I was in a sort of sub-box room, staring to blank wall, but his room had windows looking out across the fields and the hills in the background and all this sort of stuff. And you think, if you write because you want to write, not because you've got a pretty scene to look at. And,
I think, there's Stephen King said in the book, in the famous book again, that he wrote Carrie in like the closet of his caravan, and I do think when I procrastinate from writing, I do things like I go out and I buy myself a pretty notebook, I get a new pen. I'm a Mac user, and I bought a Mac the first time just because I thought they're the best for writing, and and it's stupid, isn't it, that you fall for these kind of things. Like I love my Mac. I'm a full Mac user now, but I also write on a PC at work, and actually I write better on that PC than I do on my own MacBook. And whether or not it was because it's the distinction between work and leisure, I don't know. But you don't have to have millions and the best things in order to write. Like you said, you need the drive, you need the creative inspiration to just get it done. And whether that's in a month or in 10 years, it's just how you approach it.
Yeah, and how I see a lot of people talking about how they would love to make writing their career, and NaNoWriMo could be the start of that, and of course it could. It happens to some people, but to do that, then you have to approach it like a career, and you have to be trained. You have to have your work looked at and critiqued and analysed, and you have to learn, and then you have to do it every day. And really, there's no substitute for sitting down and writing. And you don't have to write 1,700 words a day or 1,000 words a day. But I'm going to put a link to this River of Small Stones, because that's something that can really help if someone's sort of blocked or feels they can't write. We all sort of look out of a window or walk to the shop or something, and if you look carefully and listen and smell, you can see things around you, and after a while, and once you've sort of looked at some of the other ones that people submit, you think, yeah, I could do that, and it sort of gives you, I think it gives you a little bit of inspiration for writing again, and keeps things flowing.
People are inspired by all sorts of different things. I mean, I've been posting in the Facebook forum visual prompts. I work really well to visual prompts. I like creating stories just out of 3 random images, and I think, again, if you are struggling, like you said, I love doing what you said and just going out and really kind of getting a feel for the world and writing it in a book or on my phone or emailing it to myself, or sometimes even just talking directly into the phone. I look like a nutter, but I don't really care. And or just writing from visual prompts. Like if I see something really cool, I'll take a picture of it. If I see something really cool online, I'll save it into like a folder. I've got a visual prompts folder, and I've got something on Pinterest as well. If you are just really stuck, go and just look at images and see how it works for you.
Yeah, there's Pinterest is great. I like because it's one of these things. It's a bit like Twitter. No, it's not like Twitter. But it's Pinterest. You sort of jump from thing to a thing. So you find a picture, and then that's on someone else's board, and you look at that, and there's different things there. And
you're kind of like a modern archaeologist if you're going to go into that. I love discovering new things through social media. Like you said, I've discovered some of the most important things to me just by hopping from one thing to the other.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's 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 important not to get too, if you're trying to write, not to spend too long on this. But if you're struggling with the writing, then yeah, just pick up something, go for a book, or as you say, go on Pinterest and just wander around some people's boards, and
or even get a Goodreads account. What I do as well, another thing that I do if I'm really stuck on writing, I love quotes. It's a bit like short bursts of poetry that are just more philosophical. I can't speak tonight. Like just more. I think, can I just blame my blondness? I'm going to go for that. I'm Essex and I'm blonde. Let's go full stereotype. But just building up like a list of quotes on Goodreads, and that you can go back to them and you can kind of get a feel. And it's quite interesting to see when you posted them, what you're feeling at the time. So yeah, I think that's quite relatable as well.
Yeah, I remember sitting in a doctor's surgery or a hospital waiting room, and I was, got nothing to do. I think it was pre-ebooks or something, or certainly pre-Kindle. And there was a lady sort of sitting up just along the road from me, who looked really interesting, and she was dressed sort of black dress and sort of flattish black shoes, but something about her fascinated me. So I had a notepad and pen. I just sort of started writing things that I noticed about her, and it was surprising how long I could write, finding different things, noticing different things. And I think sometimes writers don't do that. Somebody went to a shop and went inside, but if you look at a row of shops, there's different things there. There's different things outside. If you look up, the roofs are different. The decoration is different. There might be a shadow of an old sign from decades ago, or it's sort of picking up that detail, which I think sort of livens the writing up and provides it.
Well,
No.
There's a poet, Frank. I think his name is Frank O'Hara. He, I think, was big in the 70s, 80s. I can't remember now, but he's a New York poet, and he, on his lunchtime breaks from work, went around the city and wrote beautiful poetry all about New York. And I think that's kind of a similar thing, is that you go out and you see the world around you, and you just, put it down in a media that you feel comfortable with, and then work from that. I mean, even if you want to write poetry, like you said earlier about you write these short lines and they kind of look like some sort of sparse modern poetry. I'm a firm believer that if you write things that look like poetry, I write poetry, but then what I do is I kind of dissect them and I build things from them that could be completely different from the overall theme of the poem. But that's just one of my strategies. That's just how I personally work, and everyone's different.
Yeah, everyone's different, and this. I mean, if you think of just going to a park and sitting on a bench and looking around, and not just, there's a tree there, and there's a play park there, and there's some grass, and there's a dog, and but what's the dog like? What colours is it? What's it doing? What's its character? Who's with it, and why are they not with it? And all sorts of different ideas can come to you. And the shape of a tree. What does the shape of a tree mean to you? And what does it signify? And it's all these things to get the writing, just to keep the writing flowing. And if it's not, we're not saying you should write 1,700 words about a tree or anything, but just people should not give up writing. If they have a desire to write, they should write and forget the word counts. It's if you're struggling with the word counts, then just don't worry about it. And but by all, certainly not give up writing, because that's where he lies.
No.
Not good stuff.
The inner critic wins if you give up writing.
Yeah, very true. And with that, I think on that pithy note, I think we'll.
Right way to end.
I'll say, I'll of course I'll bring
Haven't
the
you?
show. Yeah, I know it's contagious, isn't it? You see, that was a good word. I'll bring the show to an end. Thank you very much, Jecelyn. I really do appreciate you coming on at short notice, and
Yeah.
it's been fascinating. It's been real interesting chat.
No, thank you for having me again, and thank you for the talk.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And I've made copious notes, and I'll put your Twitter feed and stuff in the show notes. So if people want to see what you're up to, they can follow you there. And
What time to delete all the offensive ones?
yeah, I don't think we have that big an audience at the moment, but it's just a select few. So, but yeah,
All right.
we'll
Thank you again.
okay, we'll go off there. Thank you, viewers, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Any comments? Put them in the comment stream underneath the video, or send me a message, or whatever you want to do. And check writer-chat.com, where these videos are all being referenced. Thank you, and good night.